We appreciate you being here. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. And as far as roll call, it looks like we're all here tonight. I appreciate all the council being in attendance. We've asked Councilman Baird to get us started with a prayer, and then we'll go ahead and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this day. We're grateful for this opportunity we have to meet as a city council. We're thankful for those who are attending tonight. And we're grateful for the business that we have to discuss here. We ask you to please bless us. We'll make proper decisions for our community, and we'll do it in harmony with the will of the citizens and in harmony with thy will. And we are grateful for this great city that we live in, and we're grateful for those who serve in our city and provide services to our community. We're grateful for those who serve our country, and we pray for them, pray for their safety and well-being. We ask you for these things and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for
All right, first agenda item, the minutes from the last meeting.
I think the only update was just anytime, I thought it was about 7:30, wasn't it? Because we got through pretty quick.
What does it show?
Doesn't.
Yeah, I know it was prior to 7:30. Who won the bet last time?
I was, because I know I had to go to Logan that night, so I'm gonna say 7:30.
Are we betting?
You haven't been on the bet. So I'm taking bribes. I'm going to close the meeting.
I take the Fifth Amendment, Your Honor. Isn't that correct?
Anyway, I'm gonna say, we say 7:30.
We have a recording, right? So could you just,
The recording was much longer than the actual session, so it's hard to know when this recording started and when the recording ended.
but you can see what time we closed the meeting, right?
Well,
No,
I can see how
Or
long into the
adjourn.
footage, because so how long into the footage made me calculate it being about 8:10.
and I know we were done before that.
We were done well before that. Because it was a quick meeting. We didn't have a lot of staff here. We didn't go
There were some
through.
technical problems with the.
I would just say approximately 7:30 and call it good.
That sounds good.
I'll move to approve with those corrections.
Second.
Motion in the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are passed. We do have our public comment period at this time. Is there anyone here that would like to take an opportunity to address the council for 3 minutes? Seeing none, we'll move forward with our meeting. First item that we have is a public hearing for Jerry Quillen zone change. Drew, why don't you go ahead and introduce that? I see Jerry here in the audience.
So,
We'll go ahead and have you present it and everything, and then we'll move into open session after, a public hearing after all the information's been provided.
Okay, yeah, that was just. Okay, this parcel of property that Jerry's looking at is a rezone. Right now, currently it's an RN13. We're looking to change to a PONR to suit his business that he'd like to move into this location. Right now, it is not a permitted use. With the PONR, it would be a permitted use. So this is on Lagoon Street, just west of the new library, just down off the hill. Ron Wynn currently owns the property. It's 0.6 of an acre. 2 parcels combined makes 0.6 of an acre. So as far as the zone, it's close to some of our other PONR areas.
And for the public, and maybe some of the council who don't know what that means, could you say?
Sorry, professional office and residential. So
I think it's the blue, isn't behind the blue apartments, isn't that?
So yeah, the let's see, Lagoon Street to the south there. Blue apartments would be to the northwest.
Just straight west, just like a block.
Yes, right.
So, but isn't it right behind there? Because I thought we talked about that before, that it was actually, because I know across the street
Right.
is POR, right?
Yes, so we have P1R about a block and a half away on multiple sides going south as well, where the school is. So.
Do you have a map that shows the rest of the zoning?
I want to have the zoning, you want to see the zone?
Yeah.
What is the current zoning, the name of current zoning?
So it's an RN13, with like a multifamily, up to 13 units per.
Okay.
So, townhomes and those types of uses, apartments. So. There we go, right there, the RN13 area, the purple would be our PO&R. So actually the school is not in PO&R, it is in R16. So all of the purple would be the PO&R.
Can you put your cursor on the property?
Yeah, it's right there. And there's behind the blue apartments I was talking about, just directly.
Right,
behind.
we're the Miller zone.
Right.
Yeah, so we're about
About a block
Mhm.
north.
Half of a block.
Yeah, well. Yeah, about a block and a half west and a block north at most.
What's the, so I know spot zoning, we've kind of talked about that a little bit, but what's the intended use?
So we do not like to do spot zones according to our ordinances. As far as this goes, where it is, the intended use around is a PO&R application, and the business that Jerry, and I probably should let Jerry expound on the type of business and the traffic and things and kind of go with that. Would you like to give a little presentation on that?
Sure.
Get that in there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good evening, gentlemen. It is going to be a 600 square foot facility on one level, mostly with a loft. It'll have 20 parking places, so it'll eliminate congestion to the area. I think it'll be a good neighbor to have in that area. Across the street from it, there's the mud flat that have been there forever. To one side, there's residential, and there's a house with a shop. I guess that would be on the east side of it. Like I said, with the parking lot and everything that we're going to put into it, I think it'll be very presentable for anybody who lives near it. I'm gone every day at 5 o'clock.
It's physical therapy, shop.
Yeah, physical therapy. Oh, I didn't mention physical therapy clinic. Sorry about that. Physical therapy clinic. We're just looking for kind of a quiet place to where we can run a physical therapy business and still stay in Roosevelt, living in this. So, if you guys have any questions specifically about it,
That can be bigger than the one you currently have over
it
by.
is. It'll probably be about twice the size. Well,
That's, you probably need it too. you know.
So the lot where the house is at and the neighboring lot, or just a single lot on the corner?
it's just a single lot. Well, there are three lots there that we're going to have to. I mean, they're all going on the same sale with this property. They'll have to be combined. There, I think they're broken into three, and we're going to try to make those one single lot as well.
I was just wondering how you're gonna fit 20 parking spots in that one. No, that makes no more sense.
With the three lots, we'll have room for. I have the site plan that I submitted, and it's very basic site that we took to the planning. They kind of showed the parking. So I think it fits in nicely. I don't think there will be any issues with the neighbors. When we took it to zoning planning, there was no opposition. Many neighbors, letters and some things that you can do.
Can you zone out again, or zoom out again a little bit? I just want to look how this fits in. So the two blocks, the block that it's a part of and the block just east of that, we currently have blue apartments, right? Just
No, the blue apartments are west.
Oh, those are townhomes.
Yeah, the townhomes are to the east.
Okay. I don't know. Okay, yeah, I know what ones those are. And then most of the other houses in those two blocks are,
Drew, help me understand oh, sorry, you're still asking the question.
yeah, I actually don't mind the idea myself. I think that in the future we could take a bigger area there and put it in
Because a
the
lot,
potential office.
yeah, a lot of that area a lot of the zoning in that area as well, you know, the purple with that is the PONR. What are the limits? I mean, on the R13, it's what?
So 13 units per acre.
So how, the surrounding areas, I mean, it's residential and personal office, so
Yeah, so it's kind of a mixed use right now. The only,
what are the restrictions on the residential, I guess?
so 6,000 square foot per single family dwelling
Okay,
in the R6. The RM8, the RM13, I believe, is what the current zone is in RM13, actually, not 18, sorry. So 13 units per acre.
and what's the PONR again?
So PO and R, as far as, it would be your mixed use, as far as what you're, sorry, I'm not.
No, so I'm just, the homes, for example.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, so it fall under the 6,000, or the RN13 basically, would roll over into the same. It's just a professional office would be in conjunction with.
Yeah, so I don't see that there's the issue, because it really doesn't change.
Right. The only
Yeah.
issue is it doesn't touch in a continuous, but it
Sure.
is in the area in the vicinity, so.
But if somebody, I mean, yeah, I just don't think it changes much, other than allowing the personal office, I don't think it changes anything else as far as density. That's what the word I was looking for, density in the area. So,
Would our law, Grant, would our laws prohibit this, or are they just
No.
kind of?
Yeah, but it's around this long, just because it's spot.
The area that we just approved for the PONR that's just to the east or to the west. Why, I mean, across the road is PONR, but the road is still technically zoned. I mean, is that common?
So that would be considered a touching zone there. Yes.
I guess you can't just say it touches the road, because then you could go anywhere, all the roads are connected, but.
and I thought we had that conversation last time we looked at the map, the area that you're talking about, to try to incorporate some of those other lots and rezone those to PONR as well, just because it doesn't change the use. That's why I asked the question. I was just wondering, so we didn't have a spot zone. Would we want, if it doesn't change the density, why wouldn't we try to take and just those two blocks and change that? If we're gonna allow that type of business in the area, why wouldn't we just change it to a PONR so it's not an island?
It's an option.
And I think we had the same conversation with that other one, and the intent was we were going to do that, and then we just didn't. And so if we did allow this now, I would say that we should probably pursue both. If we allow this one, and then go and try to convert those two blocks and that one strip to PRNO so that they're all contiguous.
Yeah, I think that would be something we can definitely look into.
It doesn't change the density, it doesn't change the use, other than it would allow that. It looks like we've allowed that everywhere around us. So.
And I think that's a good use for that area. Physical therapy, I think it'd be great to have it right there, central and by the hospital, by the pool.
Okay, we can look into doing that.
Any other questions from the council? Okay.
And then we go into public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion to move into public hearing. Do we have a second? Second by Councilman White. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll consider ourselves in a public hearing and would allow any from the public to comment on this particular zone change. Seeing none, we entertain a motion to move back into regular session.
I motion, so.
Yeah, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Barrett. All in favor? Okay, we consider ourselves back in open session. Do we have any further discussion with the council?
I move we approve the PONR designation for that lot, but I would like to have us pursue, I agree with 100% Mayor that we ought to pursue it, so we're not spot zoning, that we make that contiguous, so I would like to pursue that, but my motion is to go ahead and approve this for now, so Jerry can move ahead, but then can have Drew work on that other part.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion is unanimous, so motion passes. Thank you. With that, we don't have anything to sign, I don't think, right?
No.
Good deal. Next up, we have Chet Stevens minor subdivision. Drew, do you have that as well?
Yeah.
I didn't see.
So this parcel basically is just a minor subdivision split. They own one contiguous parcel, they're splitting it into two. It'll be roughly 18,000 and change square foot per lot, which is more than adequate for the zone that it is in currently. It's an R110 zone, only requires 10,000 square foot per lot. There was some questions on the setback of the existing home on parcel B. We have measured and verified there is adequate room for the existing home with parcel A to be split off and still satisfy our setback. So parcel B will have the home and some outbuildings contained with that parcel. Lot A will be built upon by Chet, I believe, and his wife. So we're just looking for approval on the minor subdivision split.
This is coming before planning and zoning, they
Yes,
like it.
yes, everything passed through planning and zoning and was found in compliance.
I will approve. I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Motion by Councilman White and a second by Councilman Barrett. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. That was an easy one. And Drew, just to confirm, your setbacks, on the, looks like
The west side, yes.
is, okay. K&K contract update and discussion. Josh, we'll have you.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, you just received a letter from K&K Sanitation. They're requesting a 20% increase to both the residential and commercial accounts. We reviewed the contract with that. The legal team has analyzed that as well, and we have it up for discussion with council whether or not you want to approve that. In the contract, it does discuss in there that renegotiating rates is not something that was discussed in there. There is a clause for extreme circumstances that things can be discussed, but there is not specifically a place in there for rates to be changed. So both parties agree, of course, it's a contract, you can't change things there. But currently, that's the increase they have. Did all the council members receive a copy of that letter?
When was it sent?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
From you?
It was from me.
It was from Rhonda. There was kind of green heading on it from K&K. So the purpose of tonight is to let council discuss if this is an option we want to do, or if we want to reevaluate what our options are. Staff has reviewed it, our legal team, Grant, has reviewed it as well. We're here to answer any questions.
Any questions, thoughts?
What's the Blue Bench, what are their rates going up, and when are they going up?
So they are going up, Rhonda, do you know exactly when?
So they are going to be doing a study to determine what they think they need to increase. There were some numbers thrown out, but not really based on anything, maybe $10 per 1,000 pound, increase. Right now, Uena County, I believe, is $20, the bench is 25, so this would increase to 30, 35, potentially more. So, they definitely have some problems up there with the fact that they have to buy the liners. They're $3 million in debt right now and probably have 3 or 4 years of capacity left. And so they're gonna have to do something. And they realized that, but they did decide that they were going to do a rate study before they determined how much.
How much more expensive would it be to haul the trash to Vernal landfill instead of county?
There's an issue with that county line right down here.
What's that?
Legally, we can't cross it.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I know that was something that we looked into heavily. I got with several staff at Duchesne County, and because Roosevelt City is incorporated, we don't, now if it's a trash taken on county property, yeah, there's a commitment to take that trash to Blue Bench, but for Roosevelt City residents and inside Roosevelt City boundaries, then that does not apply. Which is interesting, but it's really hard for you guys to differentiate.
What is, Uena County's take on it?
Haven't talked to them. We're just kind of talking tonight, discussing what our options are.
The last I've talked with the county over there, they don't want outside trash.
They don't want it either. Oh, Taylor, were you gonna say something? Or you just itching? It's really quiet and nobody's moving, so I just sound.
It's just garbage.
Yes.
I was talking to the manager over there yesterday morning concerning the rate increase, and as mentioned, they don't know what they're doing. They haven't made any decisions, and they don't know when they will make any decisions, because the landfill is can't remember what they call it, but it's a district. The landfill's a district where people from both counties serve on that board of directors. And so, when we was out there with them the other day, she said they was gonna have a study, but, Hal over there says it's something that's gotta happen, just because of the fact is the first liner they're in, the due date on that is, what did they take, 29? Then the one we're filling now is, they're up in the 30s. Before it, that's how long they got to pay for it. And here we are,
2022.
2022, we just got a few years left in where they're at, and they're quite concerned about it.
Right. And I have my own thoughts on that, but we won't discuss them tonight. But that's because there are two counties that participate in that, and how we got in a position where, because technically, when you put trash into the landfill, what you charge should cover the cost of the loan and what it took to actually construct and build the landfill. And so the fact that we're going to be full and still owe millions of dollars on this is an interesting concept.
Agreed.
So anyway, I hope in those negotiations, they make sure that people are paying their fair share so we don't get in this position again, but that's neither here nor there. I think what the council will need to decide is whether or not we're going to accept the increase, whether or not we want to go out to bid, whether or not, what we're going to do and how we're going to handle that. Josh, go ahead.
And one thing, just for council's consideration, as we administer the trash collection in the city, it's a unique situation because we've contracted with K&K, yet the billing does come from Roosevelt City. And so any rate increase will completely appear that Roosevelt City is increasing the rates, even though we are contracting with a private company to do the work. And so we are in a unique situation there.
And if that's the case, any rate change has to go to a public hearing too. So this is just discussion tonight. Obviously, if we decide to increase the rates, we're gonna have to have another meeting and a public hearing to do that.
And so when we renegotiate contracts, when the public hearing, if they do a rate increase when we renegotiate a contract with them, I don't remember that happening last time.
Not,
The
the contract
rates couldn't go
negotiation is
up.
not required to go into a public hearing, a rate increase.
So if the contract results in a rate increase that the city administers, even when it goes to renegotiation of the contract, do we have to do a public hearing on that?
Yeah, because of the way that we're collecting on.
It's on our rate sheet. So we have, anytime we raise any taxes or rates, it has to be done through public hearing. But the reason why it didn't come up in the last one is that if I remember correctly, when we renewed the contract, the rate stayed the same. So there was no change in rate and anything.
When was the last rate increase?
There hasn't been one.
Hasn't been one since,
Not for a while, there hasn't.
just, I was just curious, when's the last rate increase we had on anything in the public?
As far as utilities, water, sewer, what was it, a year and a half ago, we raised water rate.
Well, we did on the secondary.
Secondary we did, garbage has been a little while.
Yeah, we did change because we are administering all the billing and everything as well. We had several, so what happened, just so the public's aware, we get a certain rate from K&K, and then we have to add a little bit to that rate to cover our administrative costs. And we were doing that on small accounts for residential, but we weren't doing that on all the commercial accounts. And so we realized at the end of last year that we were at a deficit. We were not collecting as much as we were spending on our admin costs. And so we did go through and we raised, that's when we say we raised the rates. We didn't raise the rate on the commercial or on the residential account, but we did change the rate on the commercial accounts because there was no admin cost added to that. So we just added an admin cost, proportionate admin cost to those, which put us about a net zero. Almost. So it's it's something that, yeah, if we decide to move forward with the rate increase, then we do have to have a public hearing. I believe it would look better if we did have at least a bidding process so that it was just, it's easily justified to the public. But it can be done either way. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It's just, if we do raise rates, we do have to have a public hearing.
I was gonna ask, have we bid this out before?
Yeah.
Question proposals, right?
We have a 5-year contract, and we're about a year and a half in, I believe. But when we bid it out, it wasn't at that rate. So when we raise the rates, it's taking it outside of that bidding process, because we're not including other bids in. That's the unique situation we're in when we're changing rates in the middle of a contract. Unless we had built that into the contract, which you didn't do.
Go ahead, Dave.
I'm David Kettle, for those of you who don't know me. Several factors that go into all of this, as you all know, but initially when the contract was drafted and everything that goes with it, like, I don't remember what the price was, $17.50 per resident, I think, something like that. Anyway, the last time that we re-upped on the contract, fuel was $2 a gallon. I mean, I'm talking to the choir when it comes to everybody knowing cost increase. We were looking at some tires invoices the other day. A tire that was $500, $900. You know, we're not here asking for $1 million. We're asking to help get the job done. And that, you know, and so but at the same time, we also understand where you guys stand on your side of it. Jokingly made comment to Mark earlier today in the disaster thing that he was talking about. You know, I told Mark earlier, I said, you know, you can tell him that I was reading in the Webster's dictionary, and under natural disaster, the definition was when fuel goes from $2 to $5 a gallon. Anyway, you know, this COVID thing, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know. And that we do feel very, very fortunate that we have been able to continue to operate through COVID. Luckily, you know, we've had some serious breakdowns, and there's a lot of companies that haven't been able to get parts. And we've been very fortunate that way that we've been able to still get the job done, even with these breakdowns and the shortage in parts and stuff. But anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
I thought you were gonna say, and I probably shouldn't say this on
You should have said.
the recording, but I thought you were gonna say when Biden got elected. That's what I was thinking.
Well, I would say, you know, everyone's feeling the pinch, and I get it. I think we ought to at least look into it. I think I agree with the mayor in terms of a public hearing, if we gotta change rates. So I don't know.
I did, go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking like, as far as like representing the community, I think it might be a good idea to just do an RFP that, I mean, people's rates might come in a lot higher than what you're even proposing, and I mean, it might at least shed light to the situation that we're in, having to possibly increase the rates.
I do have two other comments. What we're asking for is on a residential basis is 87 cents a week. That's what we're asking. That's what it comes down to on the residential basis. Then the other thing is I meant to say when I was up there, the last time they went out on the request for proposals, we was the only one that submitted.
Yeah.
And we should have, probably should have brought that up, because you make a good point, and just so that the public understands what that is. Either way, we'd still have to have a public hearing.
Right.
But I do agree with Councilman Baird in the sense that if you were the only ones to submit, then that would make our job a lot easier as well. It's just the transparency that we're trying to get at.
Mayor, I'm confused. We haven't been into this situation very many times in the last 45 years where we have to come and ask for money to keep afloat. Unless my memory's fogged up, I don't ever remember having to go into this kind of a deal with a public hearing. Is this something new or what?
I can answer that probably pretty accurately in the sense that I don't think we had a council that really followed the rules very well, to be completely honest. So the actual process, and Grant can probably attest to this, I don't think you've probably seen our attorney attend as many meetings as he has either.
Okay, I've just got, because we've been, so this is the first time over the last 40 plus years that this has come before us, and it's kind of.
Sure. And we're not trying to make it a longer or more difficult process than it really has to be. But we just want to make sure anytime, and to be completely honest, I think there were several times that even when I was on council, when I first started, that we probably talked about these types of things, and they were just made decisions without having the public involved, which, you know, as understanding the laws and statutes better, that probably wasn't the way we should have done that.
Well, just yesterday, diesel fuel went up 12 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just go by Maverick's flashing sign out there going back, judging it on.
Sure. No, and I get it.
I agree. I think we're all in agreement that we understand, but we want to be transparent and follow council so that we do things correctly. But I personally have no problem. I think we're gonna see this in other areas as well, and we're all gonna have to try to find a way to work through it, but we just wanna make sure that we're doing it correctly with, with what we need to do, so. And if they didn't do it correctly, I apologize, we weren't here, we're trying.
Okay,
So,
now what, if we go on this, if we pass and go on this little jump right here, and then 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, the county comes by and says, we're gonna hook you another $10 a ton, where do we go on that now?
The thing that I think would be, because as the party stated, our contract doesn't really talk about renegotiation. And I think that might be something we want to work into the agreement where we can, that would be a little bit easier process. But what I would say is anticipate that jump. The other thing that was interesting about the last contract that we entered into versus previous years is I think the contract was only a 2-year contract. This last time we renewed, for whatever reason, both parties felt like it'd be advantageous to move into a 5-year contract. So maybe we move back, if we renegotiate the price and we redo a contract, maybe we keep the term a little smaller, shorter, so that as these things happen, we're not having to renegotiate in the middle of a contract. We can let a contract terminate and then do a new contract. That would be I don't know, Grant, what your thoughts are.
It's easier to make adjustments. But we can put provisions, if that's what both sides want to do, for renegotiation, kind of outline the process or have some things specified in advance, like cost of fuel or tippage fees, those kind of things that it can be agreed upon upfront that the contract would adjust. There's lots of different ways to do it. But none of them are in the current version.
One thing, just thinking about it, that we could add into the contract is just that if your tippage fees increase, then that would be justification for you to raise your rates proportionately without having to go to a renegotiation. So there could be clauses in there or certain stipulations that if met, the rate could increase without having to come back to a renegotiation. Does that make sense? So if they did go up, let's say they did go up $10 a ton, and our cost was X, so that's percentage-wise, that's, let's say, 30% of your tippage fees, and you came back to us to have us cover those, and it was included in the contract, that mechanism could be there to accomplish that. I think that's fairly easy, I think, to write into that.
It is, and it wouldn't be hard to have something similar with fuel. Of course, that would fluctuate more often and would probably go up and down, but we can put those things into it.
Not to put words in Mark's mouth, but I think what he was asking is, those words are already in the contract as far as tippage fees. It's already worded in there, so I think what he was asking is, if the county comes back and hooks us for another $10 a ton, do we have to have a public hearing and something that's out of our control?
Personally, we would, because then we would be raising the rates to the public. Just like if we found out.
Is that what he was asking?
No, I'm
not.
Finishing out that thought process, let's take, for example, we found out that our secondary water was costing more than what we're bringing in to take care of the system. Even though we're well justified in raising the rates, we still have to have a public hearing and explain to the public why we're raising those rates. So yes, we'd still have to do that, even if it was a mechanism that automatically we could adjust those rates in the contract. We still have to have a public hearing when that happened, when that mechanism triggered, and let the public know what's going on and why their trash is going up.
Like I said, the terminology for the landfill is already built in.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, use of tippage fees.
Yes.
Yeah, that's already in there. What I'm talking about is having language in the contract where it would make automatic adjustments if the county changed the tippage fees on.
Yeah.
What I was gonna say is 2-year thing versus the 5-year. We asked for the 5-year simply because people buy a truck. There's no way in the world you're gonna pay for a truck in 2 years. So what? Was it Johnson? Ryan,
So,
we talked about this, and so that's why we asked, and I talked about and went to the 5-year, so we can have a cushion to pay it out.
Sure, and I understand that, and with the lengthening of that time, I think it was a oversight of both parties probably because things were fairly stable when Trump was in office, which is when this, and I'm not a Trump fan, I'm not trying to, I mean, it's not that I'm not a Trump fan. Anyway, but you get what I'm saying, the market was not as volatile. I'll just shut up with it. It is now.
Sunshine, you got that in the minute.
So, long story short, there was not the volatility that we're seeing now, and so the foresight wasn't there to work some of these things in. And so with the longer contract, obviously, we see that it would be advantageous if we're going to do that, maybe work some of these things in, because ultimately, the council's in between a little bit of a rock and a hard spot too. If we don't at least have an RFP, then they're gonna ask us why, and if we're playing favorites, honestly, that's gonna come up. And if we do, then we don't want to upset K&K with doing that, but then that's the transparent way to do it. And so that's why we're talking about.
Well, that's why we are, we've been between a rock and a hard spot for a year better now. And we have just, dealt with it, but we've been to the point where it's just no longer relevant.
Sure. And I think either way, we're gonna have to redraw the contract. Even if we just decide to raise the rates, we're gonna have to have a new contract in place. And I think we identify some of the problems that we've seen and write that into the new contract. Whether we do the request for proposal or not, we will have to have a new contract. It just looks, it's easier for us to explain to the public when we have had that, and you guys have won the bid or won the proposal. It's easier to have that conversation with them.
Whatever we gotta do to make it work.
So can we have the public hearing at the next meeting? Would that be soon enough or too soon?
We have, I'm not talking about public hearing, we just have to have 1 week.
Yeah, but it depends. If you're thinking you want to do the RFP, you need to do that because then the public hearing will be based on whatever the proposed new rate is.
Right.
Because I'm just thinking, I know that they're been waiting a year, basically been trying to deal with it, and everyone's getting hit by inflation, I know, and I'm aware of their situation and would like to try to do what we can help, but I want to also be transparent and follow the rules that we need to abide by as a council. So I'm just wondering timeline, how soon we can get this in place so they can start, if everything works out and they get everything, that they can collect that extra.
There's a lot of variables in there though. If you do the RFP, part of it would depend on how long you wanted that to be open, and you guys would be setting the time on that.
Okay.
And then, once you'd received, proposals, you'd need a chance to look at those and then figure out what the new rate needed to be, and then that's when you would set the public hearing.
Okay.
Realistically, I would think bare minimum 4, probably more like 6 to 8 weeks until a public hearing.
Okay. I that's all I wanted. I just kind of wanted a timeline of that. So
My guess is we could probably have this done first meeting in December. That'd give us adequate time if we did do an RFP. That would give us plenty of time after, so we could have the RFP by the second week, or the second meeting in November. And then after that, we could have a decision made in the public hearing, even the first meeting in December.
Brett had a comment over
That
here.
would probably be the,
just a question more than anything, gentlemen. So if we did this RFP, and let's say, for example, we had this crazy
quote or bid or proposal of, I don't know, $15, okay? And obviously the Roosevelt City Council is gonna be like, whoa, this is way, does our current contract still exist? Even though you did this request for proposal?
The contract would exist as long as no terms change on the contract. Now, there is provision that within 90 days, either party could, 180 days, either party could terminate the contract. I don't see that happening necessarily, but the contract is still in full force until.
That was all like.
And so if we did the RFP, and correct me if I'm wrong, and we decided to, let's say there was something to come along that it was $15 a can, and we decided to go that route, we would still have to give you 180 days notice.
That was my question. Because I didn't want to rush into something and all of a sudden, 180 days from now, we're out of a job, and we could be out of a job anyway in 180 days, but.
I would hope not.
I would be concerned about a bid that low, that they might be in the bidding to get the business and then what come down and raise it
And
double. I want to vet the company too.
And just so you know, we don't have to take the lowest bid. And in our procurement process, we don't have to take the lowest bid. And so if somebody were to come in, there's other factors that we look at that help make that decision as well. It's not all about price. It's about service. It's about, several other aspects of the work. So
I am very curious and not, this is gonna sound really wrong there, but I am very curious to visit with Mr. Giles over at Duchesne County Landfill, as well as with Greg, because that should be something that is very clear in the proposal, because we've always been under the impression that Duchesne County trash, Roosevelt City being within inside Duchesne County, had to go to the Duchesne County landfill. However, if things are such where it is presented over there, it totally opens up a total different realm of doing business. And so we would need to be very, very clear, and those who submit a proposal need to be very, very clear on that matter as well.
Well, it might help them out if we're not dumping their trash in their landfill anyway, because it'll last a few more years. But
I need to know one thing, however, the county over here has acres and acres and acres of space for landfill.
mhm.
They went and bought 160 acres a while ago. And somebody wanted to put a subdivision in east of the landfill. They went and bought the subdivision. But they didn't want any neighbors that close.
Sure.
But anyway, just one final thing here is we thought we'd appreciate being able to get service to the city. That facility out there was put together with the idea in mind that the city was welcome to come and use it. And they have supported that very well, very, very well. And so thank you for your time and what we discussed here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank
Do
you.
we need a motion there?
Well, there's a couple options. So we have a couple ideas out on the table. I do think we need to get moving this meeting along. But so either, there's three options that we have. We move forward with the rate increase, we move forward with an RFP, or we say no. I think those are the options that we have, but obviously the last one is not a good option. So we just need to make a decision whether we're gonna move forward. And if we don't, we table it till the next meeting. Either way, we need to get moving on the agenda, so.
So another option though, I was thinking, and I don't know, maybe there isn't this other option that.
Could be more than, I just threw out.
If we just opened up the contract, maybe talked about some new terms and some new verbiage going in there that increases the rates proportionally to what the increases would be. Would that put the city in a bad spot, or, if we were to just go into that for the rest of the 5 years, come to an agreement that way, do a public hearing, I mean, we could do it. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I'm just wondering.
It is possible to modify the contract too, though, or even to cancel it and enter into a new one. So changing the existing contract is also an option. If it resulted in a rate change, there would still have to be a public hearing.
Okay. I just wondered if maybe we could negotiate the rates based on proportionate increases for gas and for landfill fees. That way we can justify the public that there's really, we're only, because when they give us a number as far as what they're gonna raise it, we have to trust, I don't know, to provide the best value for our citizens. I think it would be maybe interesting to see which, maybe their rate proposal increases less than what it would be if we negotiated those terms. But anyway, I'm just thinking out loud.
That is an option.
Yeah, okay.
And we could also table it and just think about it until the next meeting, which is in 2 weeks. So that's an option as well, give it some consideration. I don't know. We only have 5, not 3.
Did you have a comment, Josh,
Yeah, no kidding.
or thought?
We have indefinite options here.
If I can make one suggestion for councils, or Councilman Bear's comment, if we do renegotiate a contract, which we can, that does lead to a potential accusations that we entered into a contract, we modified it to our other bidders, which we didn't have any, which helps us a lot. But they could say, well, I would have bidded but for this. So there is that potential, but nobody else bid, so we're in a really good place there. And as Mayor said, we are planning to have council in 2 weeks to move forward to this as well. Staff could go back and gather as much info as we can on different rates throughout the area, the basin wide of what's out there. But the truth is we want to make things work. We equitable. We don't want to. Our goal is not to terminate a contract with anybody, but in transparency, when we do change a rate that's based on a fixed contract where we did not build in any growth there, it does make it difficult for the potential claims of improperness. That's not being fair and equitable. So there's a lot of things to think about as we're renegotiating this, the rate, as far as how we go about it.
Well, just a quick thought. Maybe you could look into if there's anybody even interested, or because there may not even be any interested parties. I mean, there's a lot of questions we can answer in between now and our next meeting. And I don't know.
Are you recommending we table and gather the information and then make the decision at the next
We can
meeting?
do that, and I can do informal phone calls. Is anybody interested in bidding? If everybody says no informally, if we decide just to renegotiate the contract, it does help a lot more. You can say, hey, Josh called these other businesses, nobody was interested. We wanted to move forward as quick as possible.
Isn't that illegal?
What's that?
Informal.
That you, as a city, because that's what he would be, throw that out there.
Is that a legal grant?
Solicit bids?
Or just
companies and just ask.
You're interested in
be interested.
I don't see a problem with just asking if they would.
There's a term, I don't know what the term is, that, help me out, Brett.
I don't know.
There is a term that, non-collusion.
Well, yeah, we wouldn't be given them your rates. I don't, so yeah, that would be illegal if we said, hey, they're doing it for this and can you do it? I mean,
But I was also under the understanding when we met with Ryan Snow the last time that on a deal like this, it is, maybe I'm up in the night, illegal for the city to go outside of a current contract seeking others.
well, I'll tell
Do you understand what I'm saying? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, we'll make sure that if we were to do anything like that, we'll consult legal counsel, and I guess he's on the hook if we do anything improper. So, but anyway, we do need to get moving on. So, and like I said, we can table it. There's several things we can do, but
I just would like to get moving as soon as possible, but I'm willing to table it till the next meeting and then discuss it if that's what the council wants to do, but I don't want them on the hook any longer than we have to, so I'd like to get the process going so we can get it taken care of.
If I can, I'll just go on record and say that I will not contact anybody else without consulting legal counsel first. Because again, with any potential provider, we don't want to do that, so.
Right, I don't want
Anything
that.
I do in between now and the next time we meet, I'll make sure Grant's involved.
Where it sounds like you're gonna table, I'd like to point out one other thing, just for you to think about between now and the next meeting. We've talked about reasons for changing it, which I think there are valid reasons with, price of fuel, parts, everything has gone up, and the expected tippage fees. But the thing that I wanted you to think about and to kind of balance with that is the reasons for doing a 5-year contract. And Mark had already brought up one of them, that it brings stability to them where they're investing in equipment and things. The flip side of that for the city, and one of the things that I know is considered when we entered into that, is that it brings stability for the city to know that there's going to be rates locked in for the term of that contract. And things have happened beyond the Kettle's control I think you need to consider, but you also need to consider the reasons that the contract was originally entered into, and how that was probably considered by the council and thought to be in the best interest of the citizens too. So there's a balancing act there. You need to consider both sides as you're trying to decide how to.
Just hard to foresee the future and you hate to,
It's impossible.
yeah, so, I mean, you make your best guess and hope.
I think the public hearing can really address that too, if we just get rid of that.
I'd say let's table it. I'll move that we table it to the next meeting, but that I'd like to get it on the next meeting, a decision of some kind made.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? I didn't hear any. All right, so let's go ahead and add that to next meeting agenda. And in the meantime, we'll do a little research and homework and just make sure that we're doing our due diligence. CRS engineering, Ryan, this is on the Innovation Hub. And it's been a while since we've talked about this. It's been kind of waiting for the library to get done before we move forward. So.
Yep, we're still waiting. Hopefully by January we'll be able to start getting things going. I'm kind of representing CRS, I guess. We have Clint Allen, correct?
Yes.
With this, he's representing Craig. Craig couldn't be here. He's been helping us on this project. We're to the point now where we got an agreement here that we need to have passed off. Grants looked at it, everything looks good. For their services on the design work and getting it out to bid, and also seeing it through that it's done right. And we end up with the product in the end that the citizens are happy with. So, the total amount was $30,000 for their services. The total project amount is 600 and something, but that's with in kind to count the building. 627,000 for the total is the project, so. CRS, 627, that's counting the building.
That's counting the value of the building.
Right.
Okay.
I just,
Made me nervous. I was like, we got a grant for 200 and.
no, we got, our grant's 299,
Yeah,
229.
right. I was gonna say, I was
And then
thinking.
we have another 100 for, that was budgeted in capital. But with all of that, with the estimate of the building, it's 627. But for their services, it's 30,000. And I do want to thank Craig, he wasn't here, and I'm sure Clint's helped, but we've actually done a lot of volunteer work on this project, design. We've already got half of it designed, and getting the funding and reaching out and getting some contacts for us.
Do we have the design to look at yet, or is that?
I do have right.
So is this going to be their total amount for the full project? 30,000 will be the total amount. So what if we phased it and just, or maybe we approve the full amount, but they, at one time, and then we just pay them as they get those things complete, right? So,
Yeah, there's a pre-design phase, design phase, and then construction phase. And it also includes the bidding services, so. And this is still a rough draft. I mean, there's still things we're tweaking, you know, we had to make it cost with inflation on certain materials and things, we've had to change a few things, like the RCIC, where we got the grant. The centerpiece was gonna be all glass. Kudos to them, they had us go back and redesign that to bring costs down, which we did, so. Is there a tree effect on the outside of the building?
There's this one.
Yeah. Or no, I think that's existing. There it is. That's actually the upgrade. That last one was the original, so. We were trying to match the new library and have it tie in well with the block, with the aquatic center and everything else. So. But tonight's just the agreement with CRS Engineering.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second by Councilman Roosevelt and motion by Councilman Knight. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you,
guys. Thank you. This is exciting.
How many rooms is gonna be in their offices?
Go up a couple, yeah, that was like a lot, I just wanted.
I think there's 12 or so.
There's like about 12,
They're in the conference room.
13 offices in a conference room.
And those will be rented out, or then just community come and use it?
Rented out. But the conference room, if there's a company or anything that wants to use it for a few hours, they can.
So I don't know if anyone's been to the Vernal Innovation Hub, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to go take a peek at it. It's
Pretty nice.
Yeah, so there were several people in our area that had utilized or wanted to utilize theirs and wondered if we had something. And so when the library was moving out, that was the idea. And appreciate everybody, Ryan and those involved in getting it to this point. As soon as they move out, we'll be able to get started. Stonegate discussion. So Jones and DeVale, Jeff, I did see Jones. And Kirby, your name's on the list too. So.
Kirby said he'd at least introduce me.
Yeah. Introduce you, Jeff Baker. This is Mayor Baker's nephew from Maple City. He's infamous.
So the discussion tonight is, of course, the Stonegate discussion is on the impact fee that the residents in Stonegate are being charged at this time. So why we had Jeff come in, his company originally put the impact fee report together, and he can explain it a lot better than I can. Yep.
I know we were gonna have a word meeting, maybe I'm just gonna start off. Are there any specific questions that anybody's had going on? Yes.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, Council, one of the reasons we want to have this discussion tonight is a lot of the fees that have been applied to Stonegate, there's been a lot of confusion. Previous staff, there was a misunderstanding of how things were applied, and as we did the math, trying to figure out formulas, it was not making sense. We've had some concerns from some residents, so we wanted to figure out what we need to do, if we need to modify the ordinance, if we need to modify the impact fees. So we got a hold of Jones and DeVille, who did the original study. We found out it was done correctly, just not, it had not been applied properly. So that's what Jeff is here tonight to explain how we need to apply it, and that's what staff is planning to do, is apply it exactly as it was drafted, how it should be done, to make sure it's done properly.
That's a great introduction, and just so the council's aware, I have had several concerned citizens down in that area. So the impact fee that's charged if you look at, what the rates are, so there's a question, and Jeff, maybe you can point this out. That there is a higher rate for those that didn't pay an impact fee. Is that correct?
Go to math, Ryan. So there's, in the impact fee study, there's two areas. Might be a little hard to see, but you can see the blue dash or slanted line, that actually encompasses the red area too. So the red area crosshatch is within the blue. So, and then you can see their names there. So the blue is impact fee area 1, the red is impact fee area 2, which I'm gonna call Stonegate. That is kind of all phases, even future phases that maybe haven't happened yet. So, go back up to the other page, Ryan. So there are two fees, and part of that is because they're, if y'all remember this, I'm sure you do, there's a subdivision there that had 49 homes in it, and a few of those definitely had some groundwater problems at the time. That was kind of the purpose for the project, right? So the difference in the two fees is the impact fee for area 1, everybody in area 1, which should be charged at a maximum of $922.65. The impact fee for area 2, it says total there, but I'm gonna say for our discussion that $4,663.73 is the maximum you can charge. But if you're in area 2, you also get charged for area 1 because they overlap. Does that make sense?
So area 2 can pay the 55.8638.
That's the total impact fee that people in area 2, which again I'm going to refer as all of Stonegate phases, would pay. There's a map. Maybe let's start there. The map there, and then I can't remember if I asked Sunshine to pull it or not, but there's actually a legal description that was prepared as part of this study that gives a legal description of those two areas. So if anybody has any questions, that is there. So that's kind of the whole reason. So impact fees are there for multiple purposes, but in this case, the impact is there needed to be a sewer system installed. The city was kind of the one that could do that and acquire funding and other necessary elements. But cities are not necessarily there to invest in their own future growth of themselves, right? Like they don't pay, make current residents go pay for the growth and everything else. So the impact fee is meant to, and this is covered in the impact fee study as well, the impact fees are meant to pay for the bond that you have, that the city has on the loan portion. So, does that kind of answer your question there, Mayor?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So I get why we have the impact fees.
Yep.
The complaint that I have is if, for the residents that were there before the project was put in.
Okay, yeah, but I'm gonna call it 49 homes.
Okay, let's say 49 homes, they have a smaller impact fee, but they pay a higher rate, is what they're saying. So the complaint that I've heard is they pay a higher rate than some of the others that might come in and now they want to build, and so they're paying let's say they pay the $5,000 in impact fee, but their monthly rate is less. Over a 20 or 30 year period, the ones that have the higher rate are going to pay $12,000 to $15,000 more than the ones that just paid the initial $5,000 impact fee.
Mm-hmm.
That is the concern that I've heard, and it's a legitimate concern if that's actually the way it really is. Because if your rate is, let's say, I think the number that I've heard is it's almost maybe $100 a month more.
Okay.
For those 49 homes. Okay, so 67. So
Yeah.
let's say 67 a month is $700 and some dollars, times that by 20, that's $14,000 over a 20-year period. And then you pay the people that pay the impact fee of $5,600 or $5,300. That's $9,000 difference over the course of 20 years.
Yeah.
And I think that's the discrepancy and the frustration. I think some people would rather just pay that.
Was there,
There's no, if you compare it that way, you'd have to compare what the people that pay 5,583, what their water usage would be, because that's including that with the other.
Well, it's a sewer fee, so it's a sewer fee, so
You're not
there's no,
paying any.
right, it's a flat rate. We have someone in the audience that, remind me your name?
Michelle Casper.
Okay.
Yeah,
And-
I lived in Stonegate through the whole thing. So we pay an extra about $70 a month. But we originally, when it started, we paid $5,000 origination fee.
For a hookup.
Plus $3,000 for our hookup. Now I'm paying another, and I'm continuing to pay that $70 a month. My understanding is that the people who are moving in and hooking up, they're paying the $3,000 that the city charges, whichever all city members pay, plus a $5,000, but they're not having the extra $70 a month added to their bill.
And that's what my concern is, because if you do multiply that over several years, the ones that were there originally are going to pay more than the ones that are moving in. And that is the rub.
okay, so, I'm gonna read this here and I'll tell you my interpretation, right? So this is from the impact fee study. This is, I'm sure, publicly available if anybody wants it. I mean, we've got copies we've sent to the city, whatever. So, it says right here, user rates for the current 49 users, which when this was built, there were 49 homes, all within Area 2, will be implemented to pay the proportionate share of their impact to the system. So the way I understand it is the original 49 homes would not have been charged an impact fee. They would have been charged a $3,000 connection fee, whatever the connection fee is. And if I remember correctly, there was an option for those that they could pay that over time. The city gave them that option rather than requiring the exact amount. And it's about $3,000, I don't know what it is, but. So my understanding is if the existing residents were charged an impact fee, that's not the intent of what this impact fee study says. So and I guess let me go, I'm sure you'll have more questions. So they, just with any other bond, I don't know how many, I mean, I'm sure you are there, but with the bonds that the cities have to get to cover loans for any projects, whether it's CIB, any of these funding agencies, you have to get a bond that covers that, that guarantees that it will be paid back one way or another, right? The way the impact fee was set up and the study and the way that the city went, and I think I'm gonna say everybody was on board at that time, was that in order to guarantee that impact fee or that bond would be paid for, that additional money per month to those 49 connections is set up to pay that. I think you could always argue whether or not that's fair, but the intent and the way it's spelled out in the impact fee study was that when growth happens, now you can see, I was supposed to explain ERCs up here. So these are all based off of ERCs. If anybody's done like water modeling or sewer modeling, it's an equivalent residential connection. This area is almost solely residential, but in other areas, like if you had a business like, I don't know who uses a lot of water. Car wash. Yes. They, their rates are higher than everything else. Their impact to a system is different because they use a lot more water. So rather than distinguishing this person uses this person uses this, you say a normal home based off standard rates uses this much water, discharges in this case 330 gallons per day through the sewer system. Whereas a car wash maybe 5 times that, and they get charged something different per impact fee. So there has to be, in order for projects like this, the bond is for 30 years. We've got to try and project growth in the area to see what will happen in that next 30 years. And so it's a whole bunch of math, and that's what this really tiny table is, the last page of what you've got, Ryan. But what we've estimated during the design is that eventually there will be 612 connections in that whole area. But it may take more than 30 years to get there. It may take 10 years to get there, who knows, right? And again, grant can't predict the future, too bad, none of us can, you know what I mean? So that's kind of how the math is based off of. The impact fee does state too, that the intent was that as development happened, the impact fees collected from those homes, I'll read this again so I don't butcher it. The impact fee at, let's see, the city will use impact fees to pay back the 30-year bond payments as described here. And so that's kind of what the math shows too, that we spread it out, we make an educated guess on how much growth is gonna happen each year throughout the 30 years. And then we've applied that impact fee to that. And then theoretically, and this is where some judgment on the city has to come in, you put that, every year you should put that payment on to the principal of the loan. And then it just takes it's gonna take adjustment every year. At that point, you readjust that $62, whatever cents to go down equivalently to whatever it is.
My remembrance, now that we're talking about this, was that the rate that the residents that were there pay would decrease as new homes come based on how much money, impact fee money was put in there. So if that hasn't, I don't know if there's been new homes or how that's been happening, but that's supposed to not be the same amount the whole time as growth happens.
Yes, and I'm not sure that that's spelled out in, well, there is an ordinance that adopted this, so it was in there. Now, is that clear on the rate schedule? It might not be, but that's the intent, was there. Again, it might take longer than anticipated or shorter than anticipated to wipe that off, but the intent was to have that there. And then once that bond was paid off, then that increased payment would disappear. So it's hard to sit here and explain to you, there's pages and pages and pages of laws that go into impact fees and how they're determined and how you calculate them and how, what impact causes what. You know, this, like I said, anybody can look at this, it's stamped by us, it's stamped by the county that worked on it with us, everybody. It's done correctly as far as we understand. So to say, is it fair for these people to pay an extra $70 a month forever? That's kind of an opinion. That's just the way the impact fees work. And that's what needed to happen.
That was in order to make the funding work and to pay back the loan. If that's the only houses that ever were built in there, that they would have to pay it the whole time.
Correct.
But as new homes come in, that
Well,
will decrease.
And I think a little bit of the rub is, and this is something that the council needs to decide, because I don't think the impact fees have ever been disputed as far as what the impact, because that's the cheaper route anyway, right? If you look at it over the course of 20 years, paying the initial impact fee and not paying the extra $70 a month is the cheaper route over a certain period of time. And so I think the reason I wanted to look at this personally is because if we need to make sure those that are moving in that area, even though they have paid the impact, they still pay their proportionate share of that loan, then that needs to be applied. So maybe it's the impact fee plus $30 a month, where they pay the initial impact fee. But over the course of the loan, what I would think would be more equitable is so the loan is a 30-year loan, correct? So I would take and look at it currently, the original 49 plus those that pay the impact fee, making sure that both are paying a proportionate share to pay that loan off within the 30 years. But as the impact fees and things are collected and that goes down, would that be looked at every couple, I don't know if every year would be, but every couple of years and readjusted to show the impact fees is going to, but the monthly rate might change based on funds collected.
JR. Hard time. I mean,
you're suggesting that there's an additional rate per month to everybody.
Yes.
That's what you're suggesting.
Because everybody's benefiting.
Yeah, I can see where
and it's not fair for the 49.
And some of it is the time value of money and how long the use is, right? Because just like anything else, infrastructure depreciates and everything else, you know what I mean? So I guess what I'm trying to explain is the impact fee takes that into account in the study. So there's more to the impact fee than just the $5,500. The $62 per month is the impact of those 49 homes to the system. but it can be reduced if more people can. Like that is, I hate to say it this way, but that's their fair cost and impact to the system until others join on.
I get that. I'm just saying the ones that get on later shouldn't get a discount.
Yeah, it depends what you can consider a discount.
Because they're using the same facilities we are. They're the ones that are bringing in the semis that are ruining the roads. That were just literally put in.
Yeah, I just think that it's, I think the new ones coming in are, if you look at it, they're getting a benefit that they're not having to pay the same amount for as these other 49.
They also didn't have to go through what we went through.
Yeah, I guess my recommendation there is if you wanted to look at that, you'd need a new impact fee study to see if that were possible.
How much would that cost?
$15,000, I think is what it was for this original one.
So my question is, if I was to sell my house, do I pass that impact fee on to the person who purchased my house?
The increased rate per month would stay with your house.
Yeah.
I don't think you should have been charged an impact fee and a connection fee.
I'll have to go back and look. I'll have to checks.
Yeah, yeah, because that shouldn't have happened either. But I have calculated it out because it might, I don't know if it warrants another $10,000 or $15,000 study to see how that shakes out. Personally, this might, just me personally, not as the mayor, it didn't seem very fair. The new ones moving in to have, if I was a new resident, I would gladly pay that $5,000 and have the lower rate over that if I plan on staying there for 20 or 30 years, because it would definitely pay out.
It's definitely not something I remember. People must have considered that the people that were there already paid $922 initially. And the new people coming in will then have to pay the $5,000 or whatever it is. But I don't think the math was ever done what that extra fee would end up being at the end. Otherwise, because this doesn't make any sense to me why it was set up that way.
Because if I pay $70 and I lived there for 30 years, I'm gonna pay that much.
So.
And so if that's the case, I would have paid the $5,000 if I didn't already at the beginning. That would have went on the principal.
Now, what?
So,
and I'm gonna should take my shirt off, that's not appropriate. So I'm a Roosevelt City resident, you know what I mean? What that means to me is, if you were only charged $5,000 and this subdivision never grew, then who pays for it? JR does, Dustin does, Jeff does, you know what I mean?
And that's what
Because somebody has to, you have to have, when you have a bond, you have to.
That's not what I'm questioning. I'm not saying we're passing it
What
on.
I'm saying is those that are moving in the area,
The ones that are actually moving into
we need
Stonegate,
to look at the rate and make sure it's more equitable for those that are living in that area.
especially if I have to sell
That's
my
all I'm
house and
saying.
tell somebody, by the way, you're gonna pay another
We
$70
have to look at that, I'm just not sure that it'll.
Versus the person down the road.
versus the person down the road who's paying
If
nothing.
you do your impact fee study right now, because there are people that live there.
Yeah.
But then you're gonna have to redo an impact fee study all the time, because those things don't just, the
Well,
impact fees don't just change.
let's say we don't redo the impact study, but we can easily say that if somebody pays $5,000 for an impact fee, and then we raise their rate $30 a month, not the full 70, but $30 a month. That's gonna pay that bond off much quicker.
Yep.
And then maybe that, everybody pays the same rate and it's $70 until the bond's paid. And it's 30 and 70 until the bond's paid. And then at the point the bond's paid, then the rates go back to normal. And that would just accelerate bond payment. Instead of dragging it out for 30 years, why not just pay 15 years the full amount and then it'd be done? That's what I would like to see.
At this point, tell me what my portion is and I'll write you a check.
So anyway, I think it's something that we ought to look at least.
Yeah, and we're just gonna go, I think there needs to be a legal counsel, it's gonna go back to the impact fee laws. Is what it's gonna come back to. Because that's
Or
all.
we can
I
also
understand that your
create a special,
$5,000 is,
aside from, I mean, we'll still charge the impact fees like you're saying, but aside from that, we can do a special assessment area and.
yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm saying was the $62 a month is in essence and I understand that adds up to
No.
more.
Do people have the option to calculate what, if I paid you right now, how much would it be and forego because it would take off all the
Well,
interest and all that stuff? Is
No,
there
I
a way to
think
do
so.
that?
And Jeff, I'm not saying reduce the $62. I'm just saying collect the $62 on 49 homes. Collect an additional $30 on those that come in so that they're at least paying half of what
They're using
everyone
the
else
same
is.
facility.
That will accelerate the bond payment and the payoff. Who knows how quickly. And then once the bond's paid, the impact fee,
Goes away.
so.
My recommendation for now would be, if the impact fees that have been collected haven't been put towards the principal, that's where they need to go.
Sure.
And I guess me being leery until a new study is done, that there's specific laws for impact fees there, so it'd be hard to, I mean, you can always stop charging them because this is a maximum amount.
We don't want to charge you, and we just want to make sure everyone else moves in the area is paying their fair share too.
Yeah.
Area meaning Stonegate. We're not saying all of Roosevelt.
Yeah.
We know that
Yeah.
it doesn't affect anybody
No,
else.
I understand that for sure. And I think the hard thing too is like, again, we're hoping that 600 homes are gonna develop in this whole area.
With interest rates. right?
How long is that gonna
Until that happens.
possible? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's what.
Well, that was the whole reason we had to charge the extra fee, because you don't.
We were happy to pay it. We were told that as houses moved in, they would also pay. They would pay the 5,000 plus they would be paying their portion of the $60 or whatever it was as well to pay it off faster. And we found out later that that wasn't happening. And
Josh, is that what you found?
we're still,
With that, so as a potential resident, because I did look into, I wanted to buy a house in the subdivision. So I'm not Josh, I'm I looked at buying into the subdivision. I looked at the impact fee, I looked at the extra rate that they have. I balanced it out and you look at giving the benefit at that point, I have no benefit because I don't own property there. The benefit is to the current residents. This turned me off. I did not buy in this subdivision for this exact reason. Now, I was told from a previous employee it was a different situation, but again, the generalities are the same. The problem there is when you have somebody who is wanting to pay an equitable amount, I now, by choosing to buy elsewhere, I hurt the impact there. Because if everybody chooses like me not to buy into the subdivision and it does not grow, that $70 a month continues on, and that's even a bigger impact on them, and eventually that won't pay off the loan. It does fall to the entire community. Everybody at the end of it will have to make up that difference. That's where the.
So you're saying that the $60 a month or whatever they're being the extra will not pay on? Because I heard
If
that
it's
should
just
pay.
the 49.
It will.
I was gonna say better. Or we'll be in the same position as
If
the.
the homes ever charge that, I should know the number, I should have it here, 62, whatever, it would pay off the whole.
That would have the whole lot.
Yeah.
With no additional.
With no additional homes.
Well, I think it's something that at least maybe we look into a little further and just see how more equitably we do that.
The information I've just been gathering, I have not had a time to put it all together. I'm not finding a lot of consistency, but I don't want to say that that's what's happened until I actually get all the data. But if you give me the time, just a little bit of time to get it all together, I can give you a better picture of what's been paid by whom and what has happened with those funds.
I think
The city does have 1.1, between the two of them, $1.1 million paying off.
Yeah, and I think that's the best thing. I think the biggest thing is just to present it to council, let them know that there is something there that we may want to look at. Obviously, there are some discrepancies in
and
that
that's all
area.
that's all.
And so if we can get you to tackle that, we'll have Jeff kind of take a look at that with you and make sure that what was intended is now what we're going to follow. But I still think there might be a little bit that we look at, and having those numbers and things will help us. make some decisions that way. So I don't think there was definitely not a decision on that. We just wanted to bring it to council's attention and see, get council direction on if it's something we want to look into as far as trying to rectify.
I fully support making it an equitable situation for those that were there.
Because the people who are moving in are deteriorating it that much faster. We've already paid for this
Yeah.
period of time. So I'm not saying, I mean, I'm grateful to the city and everything they did to get us our sewer down there, and we couldn't have done it without them. And so don't take that into, when I found out and it wasn't what we were told in the beginning, I just wanted to make sure and be, so that if I decide to sell my house, I know what to tell somebody. I really.
Sounds fair.
Thank
We'll
you.
look into it. Thanks, Jeff, for letting us know, and then we'll wait to see what you come up with for our next meeting. Gun range, that's something that I've been working on. Still don't have a final answer from Dollar City, and so we're just gonna postpone that until we know exactly what the expectation will be from them. I know we brought it to council before that they were asking for a little bit of help with the road that leads to the gun range. I went and talked to them and proposed the amount that we were comfortable with, which was anywhere from 30 to 50,000. They considered that. They haven't made a final answer. They're meeting it tonight. Honestly, if anybody knows me very well, they know I don't get attached to projects or anything, and I could just say no. I mean, personally, I could just walk away from a project if it doesn't end up a good one. So I'm at that point. Like, I'd like to see it move forward, but I don't really. It's not worth it to me to put Roosevelt City residents on the hook for things that I don't think they're.
Not, we can't get money for later.
And or finding a different location for us. We have other property in other areas. We could look at that as well. And so we'll see what they come back with. Hopefully it's something that would work for us, and that's all the update I have on that for now. Page Bench Water Project, Ryan?
I think he's all smiles.
I'm smiling, so I'm sure Jeff wants to follow me up. I think I just lost my health.
Jeff felt beat up on the last one.
Yeah, no, that's fine. This is a project that, just to remind you, we got some money through Division of Drinking Water, and it was around 2.8 for it. In fact, I'll have Jeff explain a little bit. I don't want to step on his toe. Yeah. And the project, what it was intended for was to replace old lines. That's all it is. It's not intended for anything like that. We're just replacing old infrastructure that we've had issues with. And one of the areas that's problem is also abandoning the page bench tank, which is a pump page bench, the 1 million tank that is currently leaking, and we've been dinged with points. So the project is to tie onto Cedar View's line, which is right up there with the red stops. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then come down Page Bench and loop it back into the system and bypass that tank and take it offline. The light blue line is a big transite or ductile steel line we've had issues with it a lot, and we'll replace it as well. And so it'll be tied in with the line on 121. And another part of the project is replacing some transite lines in town, if we still have funding. It's kind of tricky. I know with inflation and prices of everything, we're going to try and make it work. But anyway, what we have here today, my staff's recommendation is we already have a contract with Jones and DeMille. However, this project exceeds the 2 million. And we feel like it is not a special project because we're just replacing old infrastructure. It's not, we're not doing a whole lot of new stuff. We're just replacing, pretty simple with lines. And so the staff's recommendation is that we go with Jones and DeMille on this project. And what they have in their proposal, which I put in your packet, is 5%, which is $144,000 on this, for their services on this project, which is, I think, correlates with your current contract. Is that correct? The pricing?
So, you're talking the one that we did the procurement for that had the reduced rates, is that what you're talking?
Yeah, with your agreement, you're our engineer. And so those current rates that we did a year ago, I believe this is the same rate structure. Is that correct?
Yeah, so in that contract, it allows, like, with certain projects with a defined scope, we can give you a proposal. The discounted rates, I think we gave you a 5% discount on those. Just like when we have hourly contracts with funding or questions on your water model, stuff like that. So this 144,000, this is actually less. So when we estimate these projects, we try and throw kind of an industry standard 5 to 7% for design engineering and then also construction engineering. So you're hovering around 10% total of the project. Our project's like 2.8, 2.9, so this is where we're at right now. So we're quite a bit lower than, I don't want to say industry standard because sometimes it sounds like we're asking for too much money, but we're just trying to be equitable with the city. So because it's a project with a very clear defined scope, we're able to put together an advantageous fee and we help detail on the scope, but it's in the city that helps us all be equitable. It gives us a target to try and hit and be better than, and still give the city a very fair price for our services.
And to give the council an idea, when we looked at negotiating a contract with an engineer for the city, Jones and DeMille were instrumental in helping us get the 2.8. They were the ones that knew about the grant, that helped us get through the grant process and everything else to make this process feasible, this project feasible. And that was part of the process, or part of the thinking behind having a contract with an engineering firm, is that they would go out and look for funding opportunities to help us do these projects. And so what they're asking tonight, normally in a project this size, we might do an RFP or an RFQ. We can't do RFPs as far as pricing, but we can do requests for qualifications. We've already went through that process, and when we hired Jones DeMille, however, there are two stipulations in that if a certain project goes above the $2 million mark, and the other one is if it's a special project, then we can go out and seek other entities or other firms to do that. So it's something that we can still exercise, but we don't necessarily have to, based on the contract we have and the provisions that we set there. So.
And when we were drafting that contract, there were a few things that we were taking into consideration with the special projects. One is that we didn't want it to be written in any way that excluded Jones and DeMille from projects, and didn't want to do anything that would disincentivize them from seeking grant money. The way that we decided to do it was kind of a two-pronged process. The first is setting a dollar amount, that only things over $2 million is what we landed on. Only things over the $2 million would even qualify to be considered a special project. But then the second prong was that the city had to designate it a special project before it went out to another engineering company. I think that, as Ryan said, staff recommendation is that this one not be designated as a special project, and the reasons are the work that Jones and DeMille had already done to help with funding, and also the fact that it's really a maintenance project. It's a big maintenance project, but it's still maintenance and something that we normally would have gone with Jones and DeMille on. Those are the two reasons I remember talking about in our meetings when staff was coming up with the recommendation to not designate it a special project. If you remember any more, I'm forgetting them. But there were those two, and I think that you guys need to know kind of the reason behind staff's recommendation not to designate this one as a special project and look at outside engineering.
I'm ready to make that motion.
I'm ready to take a motion.
I'll second.
You got that, right, Sunshine? All right, any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?
What's, just out of curiosity, what's gonna happen to the page bench?
The tank?
Tank.
It's gonna be like a 20-bedroom home.
No, we decided it was gonna be a amphitheater.
Cut half of it out.
We're gonna have to table this one.
We're gonna have
There you go.
So Roosevelt City hunting, I don't know if any, this is something that I threw on the agenda. I don't know if anybody else on the council has had the same questions that I had, it's particularly this year, but people ask me to hunt Roosevelt City property. I've had several conversations and calls from DWR officers wondering what our policy is because they have people hunting on our property. It's not posted, they don't know what to do. And, you know, talking with staff, we had to come up with kind of an executive decision to for now, for the time being, until we can discuss it as a council and decide how the council wants to proceed. So Silver Farm property, the property north of the hospital, and then we also own 160 acres in Durgan. And so all three of them have been, we've had people on all three of them, and actually I've had conversations with DWR officers on all three of them. So it is something I think we need to address, some ideas that have floated out there. But first of all, I guess the biggest thing, we don't need to make any decisions tonight. We just need to know what the council's direction is moving forward. If we want to, my thought would be to create an ordinance to make city property a animal refuge so that, you know, there isn't any hunting except for people that we designate. I know Cody had some thoughts on that too.
We don't have anything in place right now.
We have nothing.
From scratch.
We're starting, you know.
I like those thoughts of anything within city limits around Roosevelt City being off limits, but I wondered about the leased property, you know, like Bergen.
Right.
With others where the individuals are leasing that property, you know, maybe they have the final say on what happens there.
And we talked about, I mentioned those comments to Grant and also some of the other staff, and we kicked that around to see what the liability is for the city, how do we handle that? So,
Yeah, and initially, I thought it was a good idea because I thought through the liability. I have some concerns with it because the city would still be staying on the hook from a liability standpoint, but giving the control over who is allowed to hunt there to somebody else. So that's a little bit concerning to me. The other thing is I was trying to think through, and for lawyers, we're always thinking worst case scenario, what could happen. But the other thing that I thought about is the hunting rights can be very valuable, and it seems like the value increases over time. And the fluctuation is huge too, depending on what's there. I've dealt with a situation before where just because a desirable animal, just one individual animal happened to be on a small piece of property, that huge offers were made in excess of $100,000 for hunting rights for just there. And so without knowing or being able to predict what's going to wander on and off the property, it can also make it difficult to know, like if the leasee would be the person who would be able to enter into contracts with somebody to hunt there, or if it would be the city if there was money being made. But the biggest concern that I have really is the city maintaining liability, but giving control over who is allowed there to somebody else. So as I thought it through, even though I thought it was a good idea in the beginning, I thought there are some legal problems there.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking of it as, you know, just from a perspective of just it being public property that's owned by Roosevelt City. I know that Bureau of Land Management lands, Forest Service lands are all public property. They're hunted. State lands, you can hunt. Citla lands, you can. Refuges, you can't. Well, you can in certain permits, but I think I'm just wondering about Roosevelt City property. It's public land. There's people that pay for the land. I kind of think we ought to think about it that way a little bit. I don't know if it's something we should restrict. We can come up with permitted uses for our land, but I don't know if it's something we should restrict.
There must be restrictions. The city has restrictions.
Right.
They can't vote
If
on.
you had several hundred, I mean, we have pivots, we have equipment, we have landowners or lessees that.
It's other federal lands and state lands.
How does the state and federal land deal with the liability issues? Why would that be any different than?
Well, I don't have a problem with it if we're the ones controlling it. My concern is if the lessee is doing it, and so what we would essentially do, and it's not addressing the current contracts, but we would be turning over the right to exclude completely to them, to the private property, right? But then we would maintain liability. And so if they were picking and choosing who they were letting on, that's the concern that I have. If we just,
I think if you let hunting allowed, it would have to be the same process the city uses to enter a contract with anybody. It would be open bid to the public.
That's why I think the refuge would be the best, because it's all, you either gotta be all or nothing. Because you can't selectively go and allow somebody to go hunt it and not allow somebody else, and then it turns into,
Letting somebody lease the property, they have the right to the property. I mean, you can't just say, yeah, anyone who wants to go on that property,
So-
go and do that. Okay, I see. Sorry, I didn't understand the predicament.
Yeah, so the thought too is, there is the potential that we could generate some revenue by issuing certain tax or things like that. That's not that big of a deal. What I think is a concern, and Ryan brought this up, is we have elk that come in the Durgan property. The landowner busts down all the fences. So that's why we're thinking we have it a refuge, but then with certain stipulations like you had mentioned, where animals could be hunted, but it's at the control and consent of Roosevelt City. We could even have it a draw, like a special draw that everyone would be able to apply for. And so that we can manage and control those animals in those areas. Working with the DWR and trying to control those populations. And also working with, Wildlife Conservation Foundation, Wounded Warriors and things like that might have opportunities for those type on Roosevelt City property. So that there's some regulations instead of the DWRs are in a predicament because they don't know whether to chase people off. They have people with depredation tags going on our property, which is illegal also, and so they're trying to figure out what to do, and it's been kind of, they don't have any direction from us, and so we just told them, for now, we're gonna post everything, we're gonna try to keep everybody off the property until we figure out how best to administer that.
And I think when we do get to administering, if we do that, then we should potentially come up with some rules and maybe just a signature that they have to sign that says that they'll follow certain ethics rules and then also follow certain,
So you just,
property rules, so that it relieves us of liabilities.
So you thinking open it to the public, as a draw, or just opening it to the public as long as they come and get written permission?
I was thinking a draw.
So you limit how many people.
For rules and regulations, policies do that, you're basically turning it into a management unit that you have to go through the DWR.
Maybe.
And that
Could be, I don't know.
Mayor, would that include the duck hunting on the sewer?
Anybody that wants to do that, is having a myself.
JR.
Well, we have two other comments.
I'm just curious, we talking, to me, inside city limits is two different things. My opinion is inside city limits would be no period.
Right.
And that's my only concern, is in my position, you can't, once that projectile's released.
I would even think next.
So I think that would be automatic, and then you guys are discussing, is that what I understand?
Yeah.
So if you're on your own property and you're using a boat, would you consider that illegal or should be illegal as well?
Well, I would, because again, you're throwing what? How many feet per second in
326.
in a quarter of an acre. And again, when that projectile is released, you can't control it after it's gone. So I would say yes, in the city.
I'm pretty sure it is. I go hunt and do the extended deer, and I'm pretty sure you cannot hunt within city limits with a bow.
So we also have the nature part, which then is that's not in
That is in
someone's
city limits.
backyard, but it's in the city.
Yeah.
I would make it a blanket to this. That's what and I'm thinking on viewpoint from the police department, that's much easier to manage and deal with as well. But as far as the city limits, that be off on everything.
Brett, did you have a comment?
I do, it is amazing on the third Saturday of October, how many vehicles are at the city farm.
Yeah.
With the key,
Yeah.
mind you.
Well, and that's the thing is and that's an unfair administration of property, right? If somebody-
I don't know, I'm just making a funny
access and
comment,
other
okay?
people don't.
Like,
But-
it is crazy how many
So-
vehicles are there.
What we need to hear is just basically if we want to do something, we just need to get a basic direction of where to go, so that we're at least heading in the right direction. So obviously, I'm on board with absolutely nothing within city limits. I think it's already a law, so. But then with the properties outside, do we do it? You know, I know you talked about a special management, we can, Ryan, go ahead.
Well, I don't mean to cut you off, Mayor. I just wanted to make sure I voice my concern about the property outside city limits. Some of this property has very valuable infrastructure. I don't want anybody shooting up the wells, personally, especially if I don't know who they are. So I don't know. That's just a concern. We do have infrastructure we need to protect. That is our water that supplies the town. Now, out of the sewer farm, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Just keep in mind there is infrastructure there.
And that was the reason, the draw, and then if somebody did draw and it's not even a draw like we administer it through the state, it would just, we would allow a certain amount of people to hunt the properties each year, and they would be accompanied by a member of staff, just so that we could, and most likely, I mean, we might give preferential treatment to, again, wounded warriors or, veterans or some people with those types of disabilities or, things, but that's kind of the direction we thought might work. To, one, it's fair. Two, we can have some control there and make sure it's just not a free-for-all. And three, we still satisfy some of the property owners' needs by eliminating some of the population of those herds there that are a detriment to their crops and their fences and their things like that. So, and working closely with the DWR to administer those things and them involved with that.
One thing that, if you disallow hunting completely, then the person who leases that property couldn't even apply for a depredation.
That is correct.
Tag from the DWR, which they could do now.
Yeah.
As long as they meet certain acreage requirements and that kind of thing.
And we could do that, and that's a fair way to do it also, just say absolutely none.
What about prairie dogs? I'm just gonna throw a stupid comment out there, but there's nobody that doesn't go shoot prairie dogs on the city farm. In one way, shape, or form. Literally. I mean,
well, if it's not a controlled species, I don't think we're too concerned.
Where are you gonna draw the line, though, is what I'm getting at, is for the police department to enforce, like, that's all I'm getting at.
Well, I think if it's controlled by the state or monitored by the state, then absolutely it falls within that. If it's a rock chuck, I don't know, prairie dog, magpie.
I think this is definitely something to think about,
Sure.
and I'm with you, JR, no matter what we decide.
Yeah, I think, and that's the thing, we just want to have a direction. So do we start moving in a certain direction? Do you want to wait, think about it till the next meeting?
I think a big driver for me is that a resource that's very valuable to the city, or are we not gonna bring in enough to even, like a trespass fee or something to allow people to go? Because they can get a private land, give them permission, and it'll cost them 30.
Well, to give you an idea, talking with Kevin with WCF, he was saying we could, if we had a couple that we did, we could raffle one off. He said it'd probably bring $3,500 to $5,000 to do something like that. That's money that we could put back into the gun range, for operating and maintenance and those types of things. So I think there would be somewhat of a benefit. And it would depend on the year, like Brandon said, but I think ultimately there could be a benefit there. To me, I think the biggest thing is, it sounds like to me, we can table it until next meeting. Hopefully the council will think about it, but until then, I just hope the council understands that we just have a no hunting policy until then.
Mayor, if you'd like, I can have staff work on gathering from other communities. If we're looking for a starting place, a good option is to see what other communities have done. I can find some other ordinances, send them to council. Maybe that gives you ideas of what to do. If you'd like.
That's a good idea, yes, if you could do that.
I would move them, we table until we get more information, we can think about it.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thanks.
Mayor, was that White or Baird that's second?
That was Baird. I'm sorry. City ordinance labeling change for police department. This is very quick and easy.
Easy.
Or it should be.
So basically, it's pretty simple. When we went back, when we bought this building, and we went back on the Uinta County server, we found out that Vernal has a lot of our same ordinance number formats. So they don't line up with the same ordinance, per se, like dog at large, but they've used that number. I talked to Grant, Uinta County, Spillman, and the court, and we decided that the easiest way to do it is just put an R in front of all our numbered ordinances. It makes it different. We can go ahead and write tickets through Spillman. Right now, we have to handwrite a ticket, give it to Grant, and he has to file it.
Do we want a different letter, like Q?
You could use the police department or the Z, so that you see
I'm just kidding.
Whatever you guys want.
Our bad.
Any questions on that? I think it's pretty straightforward.
I move we approve.
Second.
A motion and a second by Councilman White. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thanks. Chief Watkins dispatch contract.
I'm gonna, jump just for a second, put, Mr. Charles on the line here. I got that to you really fast.
I have gone over it.
You haven't gone over it? You see any issues, huh?
No.
Thank you, sir. With the dispatch contract, I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the city's actually voted on this or seen this. This is a cooperative contract. In years past, there's just been a couple changes or difference with this, and well, two actually. One is it was, I think, an 8-year. They moved to a 5-year.
I don't remember what the.
Okay, but it's a 5-year now. They shortened it a little bit, and then the state added an addendum on how they are billing, which is attached to the end of the contract or the agreement. Other than that, it's the same. If you approve it, then I've got a couple more questions for the council afterwards.
Why does the title say Uinta Basin, Duchesne County, Daggett County, and not any of the other people that are involved in it?
Yeah. It includes it, I believe, in the second paragraph, and it breaks it down.
Stays a little.
Yeah.
Duchesne County is not part of the Uinta Basin.
And I'll entertain any questions with it too. I'm kind of familiar with this from also my previous chief position over in Naples as well. And how it functions.
You said you read over it, Graham, did you have any questions?
I don't have any issues with that.
And this is just how all the organizations from different agencies work together.
Yeah, every every fire department, police department, ambulance service, I believe. Mute ambulance is also part of this. Special fire district unit is also right there. It is an agreement. And again, I'm familiar with this from about 15 years ago. And it's kind of hard, just a little bit of background, it's kind of hard putting together how to bill. It's darn impossible sometimes to make sure that it's fair all the way around. But as it states right now, we have voting members, which in this case, according to this, it is the executive branch. So voting would be Humana County Commissioner, Roosevelt Mayor, Bernal Mayor, which leads my next question. We have actually somebody, our designee, we have somebody officially appointed to it, or is it Andrew? That I think we just need to clarify on that. Non-voting members are either the chiefs and the sheriffs in this advisory board. Communications director, Duchesne County Commissioner, Humana County Commissioner, mayor, and city representatives, Roosevelt mayor, or representatives for Bernal City. These are the major players. They have votes. Everyone else, Daggett County, animal control, unified fire, or not unified, but the fire district, are all contracted. Naples City as well, which they get a flat fee per call.
Does it say what our liability is? What the cost to us is?
The billing's on the last page on how they bill. And they split. I you want to roll to the last page. Who's manning the? It must be Ryan. Yeah. It's split 33.67, split among approval of budget of 2021 fiscal year. I'll read it down on that one there.
And you're comfortable with it, chief?
Oh, you did ask me. Yeah, for the most part, I don't think we're gonna get any better or have. We have messed with this for many years. It's just like making a schedule for employees. You never get it right and you never get it exactly and please everybody. So the answer to your question there, yes, but it's fundamentally a little frustrating with how it's gone about, because we're paying who you're on in, we're paying dispatch. 50.
Actually, just looking at like
70 some odd.
77, something like that.
Yeah,
last
a year. And I'll be quite frank with you, dispatch services and such for that price.
Did they need to put 6,400? Because that should be a 60/40 split.
It's 60/40.
60/40.
There's a typo.
Yeah.
So that's not, I mean, we'll take the 6,400. 60 yes, 400 no.
Yeah, actually, I'll point that out to him.
That's 15%, we can do that.
I think what we need to do with this too, Mayor, because you're a voting member, an advisory, is we need to, they only have one dispatch meeting for the board a year. That's right there about 5 weeks before the end of the budget, which is always frustrating to me, because I'm always running figures to, we did it this year and I did it when I worked for Naples. We should be quarterly and addressing other issues. If we have, we're paying 70 some odd thousand. It's just a thought process. I'm just gonna start pushing it, but lately I've been the one pushing things and getting labeled here.
Well, do we have any other questions from the council on this? And it's, what was the line, it's 5 year, you say?
5 year. Every month.
You gonna make a motion, Dave? Is that what you guys were?
No, just saying back.
No, I would say make the motion, but
Oh,
That's what I thought.
Well,
I move we approve then if based on Grant and Chief Watkins' comments, and I move we approve the contract.
We have a second. Second by Councilman Rowdy. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye. You know me, I just want to keep the meeting moving.
Yeah. Yeah, we got started slow and haven't been good. So there you go, that is approved.
I will touch base with you further and.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chief.
Next one I have an interest in, but I think we're on.
Vehicle lease.
Don't go too far. I have a question for you. This one will be short and sweet also. Basically, we entered into a lease program for our fleet vehicles. We are entering into the second year of that, so it will terminate the first batch of vehicles this time next year. We're being told that if we are going to have vehicles to replace those with, we need to place the order now. My hesitancy has been that we shouldn't be ordering anything until it's actually approved on a budget, but if we wait until the budget is approved next year, we will have a lapse in between when we have vehicles, the lease come up and when they'll have some available. By pre-ordering, we're not entering any contractual agreement. We're not committing the city to anything. We are just basically telling them these are the vehicles that we anticipate needing for this next year. Once the budget is approved, then we can take those orders, but they will already have named them. Both lease companies that we've dealt with have no issues with this because they say if you decide you don't want to continue the lease program and you say we don't want them, we have many other people who would be happy to have them. But in order for them to order it, they need just something from the city stating, this is our intention.
Do you have an idea of an amount?
Well, as far as we know, there will be no increases. That would be the same amount that we're doing now on a regular basis for the fleet vehicles. And basically next year we would be replacing the vehicles that we're leasing now.
So it'll be seven for the next year, 8
7 for the
after that, because we've got 16 with
that's the police, and then a handful with the city.
And the vehicles that just arrived 2 weeks ago, I ordered in November 1st of last year. So I'm ready to get on the phone again and say, give me some. And have it come in. Again, it's just you approved the program. I guess what we're doing is just clarifying that I can go ahead, at least for the police department, get the ball rolling and get things ordered or shut in order. We did the same thing with equipment as well.
Again, it does not commit you necessarily to anything if you decide that, you don't want to continue the lease program or whatever, it's not approved on the next budget. It is not something you're contractually agreeing to. I just felt better having some sort of authorization from you guys.
Councilman Barrett made a motion.
I think we motion to get these things pre-ordered and.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. The next two items that Josh had on there, but we're going to scratch those for tonight. So procurement and surplus, he's still got a little bit of work to do on those before he presents to council. Next is the Crv Acceptance of Funds. So Josh, go ahead and come up and we'll tag team this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the first thing we have on here is a sports complex. As you know, we did receive approval for this for a $3.22 project. Well, a $3.22 million loan at 20 years at 0.5% interest, a $280,000 grant for $3.5 million total. I'm going to talk about both of them together at first, just because it works out. It's unique how they gave it to us. Originally, we requested a 50-50 split on that one. The State Street project, 300 South, we requested 100% loan at 0% interest. CIB awarded us a $345,000 grant, a $284,000 loan at 10 years at 0.5% interest. So we asked for all of them, they gave us a really good split on that one. The sports complex, we asked for 50-50, not nearly as good. However, I will report to council, it was very impressive that they gave us a 0.5% interest on both of these projects. I believe every other project was well over 0.5%, somewhere at 2%, 2.5%. We got a really good interest rate on them. If you take everything added together, it's close to what our original request was of a 50-50 and 100% loan on the streets project. So overall, it wasn't exactly what we had hoped for. We were hoping to get a little bit better split. It was a good learning experience for the situation we were presented. But we do feel good about these terms. Mayor, I have a condition, I don't know how you want to call it, but a suggestion for council as we move forward with these projects. The State Street one, I'll start with that simple one. We need this done, the project's ready to go. It's already been started. We've already received $1.8 million federal grant, $300,000 state grant, and then our local contribution is $382,000. That's what we've already committed. So as you know, this was to extend the project because of the shortfall. The sports complex is the one that gets a little unique, and I'll turn it over to you for this.
So, as Josh has explained it, if you take everything into consideration, we're at about you twist the numbers, which we don't want to twist things too much, but if you look at overall, we're at about a 20-80 split on the sports complex and still 100% of the cost on the street, if you want to look at it that way. So I know when we talked to council before, we were looking at maybe 20% being the max we want to take, or the minimum we'd be willing to take on that sports complex. I personally would like to see that liability reduced to a degree, and we thought about maybe doing that through a fundraising opportunity. And we'd already talked to the council about fundraising, but maybe having a target amount that we could raise for the sports complex as kind of a condition to doing it, and maybe not. It's just one of those thoughts that when we went back to CIB, we weren't given the opportunity to renegotiate our terms. It was approved very, very quickly, and we weren't given that opportunity. And we realized that there's some things that we may have done a little different to be a squeaky wheel, but we didn't also want to mess up a good package that we already had, because compared to the other packages that were being funded, it was fairly favorable. Anyway, so we want to present that to the council. We can accept those and move forward. We can accept those with contingencies, and we can deny those and just not do it. So just want to know what the council's feeling is, which direction to proceed. And if we do move forward with the sports complex, we will have to have a public hearing in addition to this meeting, because it will be bonded. And so we'll still have to have that other meeting. State Street project is a slam dunk. Once it's approved tonight, we're ready to go. So.
And one thing, Mayor, when we originally applied for this project, we talked about doing a general obligation bond. CIB did call and remind me that doing something like this, it's done through the Roosevelt Business or Building Authority, which is our council. So it's not a general obligation bond, it is still a bond, so we would need a public hearing. But I just wanted to clarify, the original application did not say Roosevelt Building Authority, but that is how you do these projects. It's how you get them approved. So I just want to make sure that's clear. Does everybody understand the difference between the two?
I'd move for now. I mean, we need to talk a little more about sports, but let's just get the State Street out of the way and say, let's accept and move forward and let's get it done, because we already have done the money for that. So that's my first motion, and then I'd like to talk a little more about the sports complex.
Okay, so we have a motion on the State Street project. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And a second by Councilman Allen. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion is unanimous. State Street moves forward. Now let's just open up some discussion on sports complex. How would...
A couple of questions. One, if we approve, when is the money available to start the complex? I don't remember how CIB works that way.
It's basically available.
As soon as it's fully approved.
Okay, and why would we need to bond if, is that not enough to cover that, the 3.5?
Well, the bond is the loan portion of it.
Oh, the loan portion, okay, so we need to have, okay.
And that's why it would be done through the Roosevelt Business or Building Authority as opposed to just a general obligation.
I mean, personally, I felt pretty good about it, and I'm like, let's get her done. I don't know.
I move we accept the way it's been offered to us.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
I just, discussion, what, you talk, yeah, I know, I'm just quite, you mentioned a fundraiser, I'm just wondering what the need for that is, I guess.
So obviously, we still have a huge liability. We're gonna total between the State Street project and the sports complex, we're gonna still be about a $3.5 million loan between the two, right? Because it's 280 plus 3.2 million. We're at 3.5 million. So we're gonna have a pretty big liability. The whole reason, part of the reason going to CIP for 50/50, we also understand that Roosevelt City provides recreation for 60% of residents, citizens that don't live in Roosevelt City.
Right.
So we were trying to get that cost covered. The reason for the fundraising is to offset some of that liability, because if we can pay the loan portion down, that obviously lowers our liability to this and ask people that would utilize this and those that are in and out of city limits to help contribute to this project. We thought that would be a fair ask to just go to them and see if we could have a fundraising campaign.
And didn't we talk, it seems like last time we talked a little bit about possibly naming fields. Could that be part of that fundraising?
Absolutely.
Okay. I don't know, Rowdy, you and Cody know more about that up there than I do, but what do you think about that?
The fundraising part of it, I mean, we need to do it, but there's no guarantee of what we're gonna get. So to put something contingent on that is kind of tough to do, right?
Right, that's what I'm concerned.
We could have, I mean, stuff's kind of booming right now, and so there could be companies that come in and definitely wanna contribute and community as well, but I don't think we can put anything contingent on that.
Yeah, and that was my concern. I don't want, I would like to maybe look into it, but I'm more apt to just go with Councilman White's motion and just let's accept and move on and get done. But I don't know if we need to add a addendum to look into fundraising, or if we just want to make that as a. Yeah, I don't know.
And that's the thing is we could still do fundraising, not make it a contingency, but just.
Yeah, that's what I would.
Have a target in mind that we'd like to see, but it moves forward anyway. The thought is to try to put a little bit of pressure back on the community that is utilizing those fields to help get that done, just to offset some of our liability.
I think that's a good idea. Even if we went to, every group that's using those fields and say, hey, is there any way you can hold a fundraiser to help us out with these? And I'm sure most of the groups would be willing to do
Yeah,
it.
because I mean, anything would help, but I don't want to make that a contingent on that.
And that's good. That's a good point too. And even if, I personally, I'd still like to see some of the young kids out there laying some sod, even if it's not the whole thing, just participating and helping and contributing and have some ownership in it.
Yeah, I agree. Even the people, the pickleball courts that are excited if they want to help with some of that. I'm all for that. I think we take it, and then if we can find ways to raise some money down the road to help offset, great. If not, I still think it's got to get done.
So I think a good way to word that is just accept it as is and make best efforts or good faith efforts to fundraise as much as.
All right, I'm good with that.
Mayor, if I can, one other clarification, just so council is aware, including the money we have from the ball fields from the library and money we budgeted for the capital, that's just over 1.22 million. So that helps, but it's still 2 million that we need to come up with.
Right.
Between payments and fundraising.
Okay.
Okay, so we have, do we have
Yeah, we had a motion and a second.
Do we
That was,
want to amend the motion just to make good faith efforts to
Yep.
fundraise? Okay, so that's the motion, and then who seconded? Councilman Allen seconded, all in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes, so we get some ball fields and pickleball courts, which is really most important.
We should put a brief over the.
Let's quickly, so we have purchase orders and financial review, and we do have a financial review tonight, don't we?
Sure. You've got the update in front of you, 25% of the year has expired, and we have about 21% of our revenues. As budgeted, we spent about 15% of what we expected to spend for general funds, so looking at it year to date, we're in a pretty good position.
That includes this last purchase order.
Right, this big list of checks.
Well, you can discuss it next month after.
Right now, it's looking good, so
Right
let's.
now it looks really good, so, yes. We did have a lot to approve. We are getting a lot of movement with capital projects, which I'm happy to see because we really are seeing more and more increases everywhere in the cost and availability of things. And so we've been pretty pleased on those projects that we've been able to complete within our budget, and we jumped on that to get those capital projects going. I know we have a few that we're going to have to, revisit whether they're even feasible because price increases. It's really hitting us on that on some of the projects we have planned for the pool. So we'll address that as we find out more information.
Our fire tender's coming next week too.
Oh, yeah. Yes, you saw the pictures in there. It will be delivered next week. So after a year and a half of waiting, we have a brand new fire tender coming. So that's exciting. Water and sewer, not a big story to be told there. Everything seems to be kind of on schedule. I'm pretty pleased that we're looking pretty strong on the budget as of right now. With 1/4 of the year in.
Yeah, I looked at the purchase orders and would make a motion to approve the financials.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any questions for Rhonda on the financials?
Sorry.
Thank you, Rhonda.
I already asked all my questions earlier, so.
Thank you.
We appreciate all you do.
Yeah.
All right. Josh, do you have a quick report for us?
Well, it depends. 2 hours later, I go, man, no. I have 4 quick items to report to the council tonight. The first, I want to recognize 2 employees. I'm going to read two sentences from a letter from Sergeant Luke Stratinger from Utah Highway Patrol. This is addressed to Chief Watkins. I want to recognize Corporal Clint Robinson for his professionalism, loyalty, and putting aside his agenda to attend Trooper Brock Lewis's badge pinning ceremony in Salt Lake City on September 8th. He then goes on to explain what he did that was so great. And he later said, I appreciate his effort on behalf of your agency and supporting mine. I just want to recognize Corporal Robinson for his professionalism because he is great. And when we receive recognition like this from other departments and other areas, I want to make sure council knows what quality of employees we have and how great our officers are. So I know he's not here tonight, but I did want you to know of that. Second thing, I wanted to acknowledge the city staff and especially Brock. Roosevelt City has been credited with a $4,425 TAP award. Hopefully you know what the TAP award is through the trust. Essentially, if city staff is being safe, staying out of accidents, following up with our safety committee, we are eligible for this reimbursement program through the trust and our insurance. It does say on average, TARP participants have reduced accident frequency by more than 25%. So Roosevelt City was awarded that this year, and I believe Brock heads up our program. He heads up our safety committee, so he and Drew is not here. But I did want to recognize them as well. The final 2 quick things I want council to be aware of is October 27th, we have our employee golf barbecue. There we'll get a hold of you on that to help out at that. So October 27th, dinner will be around 5 o'clock. And then also, please put on your calendars, the winter celebration will be December 9th over at Crossroads. We have the building reserved over there. Any questions for me on anything else in this?
The 27th, you said, was the golf?
Yes.
What time?
The golf will be around 1 o'clock, food around 5.
What was the other, is the city council gonna be bringing the food to that as well?
Historically, yes, council does.
And then what was the other event? Winter.
The winter celebration,
Which date is that?
December 9th. That will be in the evening, sunshine, what time is that?
We haven't had time yet.
The time is to be coming forth. But anybody that wants to help out on that, please let us know. Sunshine's heading up that committee as well. Any questions?
No, can I just make, I'm just gonna make a comment, Officer Robinson is great, I appreciate his efforts, having worked with him as well. What was the other one? Rock, oh yeah. Oh, the safety meetings, I go to those, most every month, just to visit with the employees and stuff, and been very impressed with what they've talked about. They even stayed awake during Chief Watkins, well, most of them.
I yelled at them. They heard me down the hall.
And I believe Kirby's on that committee as well. You don't recognize him though. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Mr. Bake. Do we have any community reports?
I just want to thank the Sunshine and the employees for their work on the trail and nature. Did a great job and appreciate the efforts that are going in on the nature trail. I know the mayor was there and I was there late, but I did show up for a little bit, but I do appreciate their efforts, so.
Councilman White? Nothing to report. Councilman Barrett? Councilman Powers? And
Just a comment, I wasn't there, but I heard reports about the frisbee golf tournament that was last Saturday. That one was pretty awesome. Everybody said it was really good, especially for the first one, well organized. I think they filled almost every slot, except for maybe 2, so just wanted to.
wasn't it like 70 participants or something like that?
I think they got like 68 that
Yeah.
showed up, so, yeah, so good job.
That's awesome.
Who spearheaded that? Royce.
And Royce.
Yeah.
Did you participate?
No, I wasn't here, but got a report.
I drove past and I saw where they had the basket set up right next to the greens and things like that. I think it's a pretty good idea. Awesome. I don't have anything further than what I've already mentioned. We do have a closed session for purposes listed in EFAC Code 524205. Also, that is personnel, but there's also some land discussions that we need to have in closed session.
And potential litigation.
So we have a plethora of items in closed session. So we'll go ahead and if we can get a
I
motion.
move we go to closed session and then return back to open session when we're done. To do that. After.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Second by Councilman Flowers, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Let's adjourn for a few minutes.
No.